let's talk about how we're trying to control AI. Because honestly, our current game plan might be completely wrong. Today, we're going to dig into a fresh way to think about it, a new mental model inspired by the work of A. Romanova. It's all about comparing AI not to a car on a chaotic road, but to a train on its own dedicated track. Let's get into it.
It sounds like something out of a movie, right? But this is a very real, very urgent question we need to answer. AI isn't some far-off concept anymore. It's here, right now, making decisions that have a major impact on our lives.
I mean, we're talking about everything from who gets hired in corporate management to how universities grade exams, and even who gets approved for citizenship. AI is already deep in the mix, which makes one question absolutely critical. How do we make sure these things are actually following our rules?
So how are we trying to tackle this right now? Well, the main strategy, the one pretty much everyone is using, can be summed up with a simple analogy. We're treating AI like a car on the road.
Just picture a self-driving car. What are we trying to do? We're trying to teach it to navigate our messy, unpredictable world. A world full of human drivers who bend the rules, cyclists who pop out of nowhere, and people who just jaywalk. We're essentially forcing the AI to figure out our complex, and let's be honest, often illogical human environment. Now there's a fancy technical term for this whole approach. It's called the Operational Design Domain, or ODD for short. And this is pretty much the cornerstone concept for building almost any autonomous system today.
The Society of Automotive Engineers, the folks who literally set the standards for this stuff, they define it as the specific set of conditions an AI is built to handle. So an ODD might include things like only drives during daylight hours, in clear weather, and on well-marked highways.
So here's the kicker, the really critical point. With this OOD approach, safety is only guaranteed as long as the AI stays inside this very specific, predefined bubble. If that car designed for sunny California highways suddenly hits a Minnesota snowstorm, all bets are off. But the real problem isn't just unpredictable weather. It's our unpredictable human rules.
And this is where the car on the road model really starts to break down. There's this deep, fundamental conflict between the way human laws work and the way AI logic works. They just don't speak the same language.
Think about it. Human rules are social constructs. They're flexible, they're nuanced, they rely on common sense. Like when you let someone merge in heavy traffic, even though it's not technically their turn. But AI decisions, they're technical constructs. They're rigid, they're precise, they're based on pure formal logic. And AI can't just get the hint.
And as P.N. Meesand points out, something always gets lost in translation. When you try to turn a nuanced human law into computer code, you have to make compromises. You lose the spirit of the law, and you're just left with the literal text. It's kind of like trying to teach a car the concept of being a courteous driver by only showing it the DMV handbook. It just doesn't work.
This whole situation creates what the European Commission has called a no-win scenario. We're stuck with three really bad options. Do we make our laws super rigid and less human for everybody? Do we just program the AI to break the rules sometimes? Or do we force a human to jump in and take over just to make a simple, common sense move? None of those sound good, right?
All of this brings us to a pretty radical question. If our legal roads aren't built for AI in the first place, why are we trying so hard to force it to drive on them? What if, instead, we built it a new road entirely? And this is where we pivot to a completely different way of thinking, the train on the track model. Forget the cars struggling in city traffic. Let's start thinking about AI as a high-speed train.
A train is unbelievably powerful and incredibly fast, and yet it's also one of the safest forms of travel. How is that possible? Well, it's simple. It doesn't share the road. It has its own dedicated infrastructure.
And look, the data completely backs us up. Trains and airplanes are way, way safer than cars, even with all their speed and power. And the reason is clear. They operate in a completely controlled environment. They have their own dedicated infrastructure, their own private road, so to speak.
Okay, so what on earth does a dedicated track for an AI actually look like? Obviously, we're not talking about laying down physical railroad ties here. We're talking about creating a dedicated legal and operational world built just for the AI.
The inspiration for this actually comes from a clever tool that already exists in the real world, something called bilingual contracts. In some big international business deals, you'll have a single agreement that's written in two different languages to work within two different legal systems. This idea of one reality, two different contexts is the key.
So we could apply that exact same logic to AI. Imagine a corporate policy that exists in two versions. You've got the one for humans, written in plain English, full of nuance, and then you have another version for the AI system, written in machine-readable code. It's the same core policy, just translated for two totally different ways of thinking.
Here's how that might work in practice. You start with a big, fuzzy human idea, a core principle like fair treatment of all shareholders. Now, for a human director, that makes sense intuitively. For an AI, it means absolutely nothing. So you translate it. You turn fairness into clear, measurable rules the AI can actually follow. Things like verifying informed consent, running checks for non-discrimination in the data, and ensuring a fair statistical distribution of risk. You're not asking it to understand fairness, you're just giving it a clear, unambiguous track to run on.
So what this all comes down to is a choice. We're at a crossroads, really. We have to make a fundamental decision about how we're going to weave these incredibly powerful systems into our society. We can keep stumbling down the path we're on, or we can choose a new one. So I'll just leave you with the central question this whole idea presents. Should we keep trying to build an AI that's like a car and keep forcing it to navigate the messy, unpredictable, and often irrational roads of human society? Or is it time we admit that AI is actually more like a high-speed train, a technology that's so powerful and so different that to unlock its true potential safely, we need to stop making it drive on our roads and instead get to work building it a track of its own? What we decide is going to shape the future for every single one of us.